What's up, everybody? It's FYGP. So recently, we just had the annual meeting in Davos, the World Economic Forum, and we had a bunch of psychopathic elites fawning over how they're gonna win the war in Ukraine. Now, let's never forget that Putin actually was a very tight in with the same people at one point as well. I don't know if that's still the case. If it is, then perhaps this is all a big theater show, a big stage, as Shakespeare would say, and that all of these are just actors and that a much bigger agenda is at play here. Here we have Putin meeting Klaus Schwab at several occasions at past World Economic Forum events. So you tell me what's going on there. This time we had actually a bunch of NATO puppets. Right here, we have the Polish president Duda, Jens Stoltenberg, and Christia Freeland. I do not know who these other women are. No idea. I can't make out who they are. Really, they're probably insignificant. So these are all puppets on a string, and they will rehearse their lines in front, and they will just say, "Oh, we gotta stand by Ukraine. We gotta stand by democracy. We gotta do this and that." Well, the Ukraine proxy war is also being used to usher in the Great Reset. So maybe we can take a look at what Jens Stoltenberg or perhaps Chrystia Freeland was saying. Let's take a look.
Krista, there are two deputy prime ministers on the podium, so I hope you don't mind, Krista, if I call you Krista. How would you respond to this question? Do you worry about the staying power of the West?
So the short answer is, of course, it would be stupid and naive not to. But I think we're going to do it. And I think, of course I worry. I am ultimately extremely confident. And I'm extremely confident, first and foremost, because of the magnificent job Ukraine is doing. We saw President Zelensky just now. I think it's right for all of us to honor Olena Zelenska, who is here with us, and of course, Yulia, and the people of Ukraine. And, President Duda said something very important, many important things. One was we need to listen to the Ukrainians. And Yulia said it too. We need to get out of a mindset, which I think a lot of us had when the Soviet Union first collapsed, of like we were the smart guys and they weren't such smart guys. I also apologize to the Latvians for this attitude. And we need to realize there's a lot we can learn from what Ukraine is doing right now. And that is ultimately the reason that I think we should have a lot of confidence. I think Ukraine is teaching all of us, again, the true strength of democracy.
Yeah.
That in good times.
Yeah, a country that in which all political parties except Zelensky's one have been banned pretty much. I mean, there's probably a bunch of other political parties that are, the right-wing parties are still around. Svoboda and Right Sector, they're still around, but left-wing parties, centralist parties have all been banned. Their supporters are regularly targeted and tied to poles and beaten on the streets. The Orthodox Church in Ukraine is being targeted as well. But that's a democracy, right? You can just see how dumb this woman is by the way she talks. I mean, that's if that is what is required to be a global leader, to be the deputy prime minister of Canada, I think anybody could do her job. It's ridiculous. You can just see by the way she talks how dumb this woman is. Now, who is Chrystia Freeland? Chrystia Freeland is actually the descendant of a Ukrainian Nazi sympathizer. Here we go. As children, Chrystia Freeland and her friend Paul Grot, president of the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, like many thousands of Ukrainian ultranationalists in Canada, were brought up through the ranks of either the League of Ukrainian Canadians, Banderat Youth Organization, or similar scouting groups called Plast Ukraine Youth Association. In 1977, at the age of 9, Freeland joined the Plast Scouting Organization. In 2013, when asked whether Plast had been influential during her childhood, Freeland responded, "Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, here we go, here she is. She's basically the daughter of a Ukrainian ultra-nationalist. Of course, you can see her here again in Ukrainian National garb and waving Ukraine flags, and she has been doing this all the time. For example, in 2014, the Ukraine Festival included fundraising efforts by Right Sector Canada. Their goal was to purchase military equipment for the fighters in Ukraine. As seen from these videos, the Right Sector still venerates Stepan Bandera, a fascist political and military leader of the Bandera faction of the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists, OUNB. So yeah, you can just scroll through this, and that is who Chrystia Freeland is. Just wanted to highlight that. Let's go back to the video of all of these elite shills. Here we have Jens Stoltenberg. Let's see what Jens Stoltenberg had to say.
Mr. Secretary General, you heard the President of Ukraine say he would like to be a member of NATO. Will you let him in?
NATO's position remains unchanged, and that is that Ukraine will become a member of NATO. Then, of course, the main focus now is to support Ukraine, to ensure that Ukraine wins the war and prevails as a sovereign, independent, democratic nation in Europe. And that's the reason why NATO allies, partners...
Ukraine is neither sovereign nor democratic.
Are providing unprecedented military support to Ukraine, and why I'm traveling around to NATO capitals and calling on them to do even more, and why I welcome the recent announcement of more armor, more advanced air defense systems, most recently by Canada with 200 armored vehicles, and also Poland delivering more weapons, and of course the US leading all these efforts in this what we call the contact group or the support group for Ukraine. And as Krista just said, it is extremely important that President Putin doesn't win this war.
It's extremely important. I basically played this part in the last one, and here he says the weapons are going to ensure the peace. Yes, because it's extremely important that Putin doesn't win this war, because this would send a message to all the other dictators that they could achieve their goals with brutal force. What has NATO been doing in the past 30 years? What has NATO been doing? And also, it's complete hypocrisy to say someone is breaking international law when you have been breaking it all the time. NATO split off Kosovo illegally from Serbia, and they're gonna lecture other people about how how they need to respect international law. That's just a complete joke.
Also, other authoritarian leaders is that when they use brutal force, when they violate international law, they achieve what they want. And that will be a very bad and dangerous lesson. It will make the world more dangerous and us more vulnerable. And that's the reason why, if we want a negotiated peaceful solution to the war in Ukraine, we need to provide military support to Ukraine. That's the only way.
Why? No, it's not true. You can negotiate an end to this war. Everybody knows that nobody obeys international law. You haven't obeyed it specifically, so your point is completely null and void.
Weapons, they are the way to peace.
Weapons, they are the way to peace. Somebody please put up the picture of Stoltenberg with that quote and compare it to the quote from 1984 where they say, "War is peace, freedom is slavery, subjugation is liberation," and so on. You know, you all read 1984.
And that may sound like a paradox, but the only way to have a negotiated agreement is to convince President Putin that he will not win on the battlefield. He has to sit down and negotiate. Nobody knows how this war will end. Most likely it will end around the negotiating table. What we do know is that what happens around that negotiating table is totally dependent on the strength of the battlefield. And if we want Ukraine to prevail, then they need the military strength. Then,
At what cost? Hundreds of thousands of dead Ukrainians? At what cost? If you claim to care so much about Ukraine, you should sit down and negotiate the most favorable deal now, because I don't think it's going to be more favorable in Ukraine, for Ukraine anytime soon, right? No, they're just going to fight until the last Ukrainian, as Lindsey Graham said. I also wanted to play a bit of Polish President Andrzej Duda, who, of course, Poles have a long-standing historic feud with Russia, so it should come to no surprise that he is very much anti-Russia.
And important it is to act now. But I do want to ask you a little bit more about this question of the staying power.
Staying
Partly
power.
because your country has done an extraordinary job that I think sometimes we don't adequately recognize. You've taken in over 2 million Ukrainian refugees, and there are no refugee camps. These are all people who are being housed individually by individual Polish families in their homes. Do you think this can go on for years? I mean, you're a politician, you understand, do you get the sense the Polish people are getting tired of playing the role of host to all these refugees?
Oh, thank you.
Of course, the Poles don't mind the Ukrainian refugees because, but they do mind the Syrian ones. Yes, they do. They do. That's why Lukashenko is trolling them and sending Afghani, Syrian, Yemeni refugees over the border with over to Poland. So yeah, of course, if they're white refugees, Poland won't mind. I don't even have to play the response of Andrzej Duda. I think it's clear. Christia Freeland is just a complete idiot.
About why this matters. And I actually find they tell me why it matters, but I need to give them opportunities to be part of this fight. And I want to quickly pick up on one thing that Avril said that could kind of get missed, I think, in the flow of all the things we've been talking about, which is the nuclear deterrence point. And I think this is one element, when we talk about the benefits that we get from a Ukrainian victory, one of them that I think we have to really be mindful of is what a Ukrainian victory would mean and what a Ukrainian defeat would mean for nuclear weapons and nuclear proliferation in the world. Because I think if Ukraine were to be defeated, then what that tells you is no matter how much you want your sovereignty, no matter how united you are as a country, no matter how prepared you are to fight, if you are fighting a bigger country that has nuclear weapons, you're going to lose. And think about the message that sends to smaller countries around the world.
Oh, there's smaller countries. How about all of the smaller countries that the United States has invaded in the past 30 years? The United States is a nuclear superpower, and they are much bigger than every country that they have attacked. So complete hypocrisy right there. These people are sick. These people are dumb, retarded idiots that just tout talking points. Christia Freeland has no credentials. I could do her job 10,000 times better than she could. Yeah, that's it for me. See you guys another time.